What are the types of authentication techniques in Web API? First of all, what is authentication? Authentication is the process of verifying the identity of a user by validating their credentials such as username and password. Okay. Now, mostly to get data from the Web API, we have to authenticate the user identity. Okay. For that, we have these 6 kinds of authentication techniques in Web API. Basic authentication, API key authentication, token based authentication, certificate based authentication, Windows authentication, and multi-factor authentication. The most important and most used of them is token based authentication, and we will see the details of the most of them in upcoming questions. What is basic authentication in Web API? Authentications means verifying a user who is accessing the system or the Web API, right? For example, when a user will log in some UI application, then username and password will be passed to the Web API for authentication purpose only. This is the Postman screenshot where we are passing the username and password with every request to verify the user. Okay. So the definition is in basic authentication, the user passes their credentials on a post request. At the Web API end, credentials are verified and response is sent back. Okay. Now the disadvantage, this is a very basic authentication. That's why its name is basic. Okay. But the disadvantage of it is basic authentication send credentials in plain text over the network. So it is not considered a very secured method of authentication. That is the problem with basic authentication. What is API key authentication in Web API? If you see the screenshot of Postman here, then here you can see we are not passing the username and password, but we are passing the API key like this. So the definition is in API key authentication, the API owner will share an API key with the users, and this key will be used for authenticate the user of that API. So the same key can be shared with multiple client users. So this is another way of authentication. So for example, you developed one web API. Okay, now you do not want that user and name and password. So you will create one API key and you will share that key with all the users, all the UI users, UI developers, so that they can authenticate with just one key, no username, password. But the disadvantage of it is API keys can be shared or stolen. Therefore, right, they can be shared. Therefore, it may not be suitable for all kind of scenarios. They might not be so secure, right? What is token based authentication? This is the most important one, so listen carefully. Here is the diagram. You will see the process of token based authentication. Okay. Here we have client, which is UI, and then we have authorization server, which will authenticate the user. Okay, and resource server will send the resources or data from the API, like whatever data a client is requested from the client. Okay, that will be sent. Both these servers are the part of the Web API only. Now, token based system authentication is a 4-step process. First, client application sends a request to authentication server with valid credentials like username and password. Okay, then the authentication servers or Web API send an access token to the client as a response. If the username and password are valid, then only. Okay, then this token contains enough data to identify a particular user at it has an expiry time. So what will happen in next request, the client uses the same token to access the restricted resources until the token is valid and not expired. If the access token is expired, then the client application can request for a new access token by using the refresh token. So refresh token is used to refresh the expired token. So this is basically the idea of the token based authentication. Okay, here we are first sending the username password, the server is sending the token, then we are not sending the username and password again, we are just only sending the token which we got from the server, and then again and again we are sending the token only. So this is what is token based authentication. What is JWT authentication? Again, a very important question in Web API. And the simple answer is JWT authentication is a token based authentication where JWT is just the token format. Okay, so JWT stands for JSON Web Token, and this is the way JWT authentication works. First, the user, like the token based authentication only, but let's just revise once more. First, the username and password are sent by the client to the web API server. The server will validate those credentials and will send back a JWT token secret. Okay. Now with every request, the browser will send the JWT token only, not the credentials again. And that also in the authorization header, the JWT token in authorization header it will send. Then web API will again validate and check the JWT signature that it will get from the JWT token. So token will be verified at the server, and if it looks good, then the server will send back the requested data or the responses in the or the resources in the response. So that is the basic process of the JWT authentication. What are the parts of JWT token? JWT token has three parts: header, payload, signature. Here you can see in the screenshot of the JWT.io website. Basically, we used this website to break our token and to check what are its parts. Okay, you can also check this website. This is the JWT token separated by dots. Okay, you can see at the left hand side. It has been decoded in three parts. First part in the red is the header, and it consistently, basically, if you can see, consists of two things. First thing is the type of the token, and we know the type of the token is JWT in our case. Second thing, it is the algorithm that is used to generate the token. So basically, when you will send the username and password to the web API, that web API will use some algorithm to generate the token, and that can be HMAC, SHA-256 or RSA. In this case, it is, I think, 256, right? SHA-256. Then second part of the token is payload. The payload typically contains claims. Now what is claims? Basically, claims is the information about the token, like the issuer of the token, the subject SUB, subject of the token, which typically the user information it is. Then the expiration time, the EXP, the expiration time of the token, IAT, issue date, like the when the token is issued. That kind of information is claims, information about the token in short. That where it will be in the payload. Okay, and then the last part is signature. I think this is the most important part, because whether the token is valid or not is verified by the signature only. So when you will send token again and again to the web API, then this from the signature part that your web API will identify. So the signature is a string that is used to ensure the integrity of the token and verify that it has not been tampered or with, right? The signature is created by encoding the header and the payload of the token, concatenating them with this dot separator, and then signing the resulting string with a secret key using a cryptographic algorithm given in header. So in short, I will say that, okay, this algorithm which is written over there at the top, this is SHA-256 or HMAC-256, that will be used by this signature only. That is the brief idea about the token, the parts of the token. Where JWT token reside in the request? This can also be a question can also be asked, and if you will see this Postman tool, that the JWT token is reside in the request header. Okay, so this key is authorization is the key, and this token is the value. So this is like key value, authorization, and the token value. So this is how the request header, if at the top you can see, this is the header where the token is stored.